Welcome to the Online Digital Marketing Podcast. We'll be discussing marketing strategies, trends, and tips that will help your business succeed in the digital age. Every episode, we'll be interviewing industry professionals and providing valuable insights on how to leverage digital tools for maximum engagement and ROI. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the latest trends in online marketing.
All right, so you know how we're always talking about those awesome articles and research papers you send our way? Well, today we're really diving deep into some of that stuff you sent that caught our eye about how to make your web pages and online marketing really hit the mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And the really cool stuff we're going to be looking at comes from MECLABS Institute. They're the brains behind MarketingSherpa and MarketingExperiments.
Oh yeah, those are fantastic. And it's brilliant how they all connect, right? MECLABS does the real nitty-gritty research on why customers do what they do, make the choices they make.
Right.
Then you've got MarketingSherpa. They take that research and say, hey, look, here's how real companies are actually using this stuff, with like these super inspiring case studies.
Yeah.
And then there's MarketingExperiments, always testing and tinkering, always trying to figure out what actually gets you results. You know, when it comes to optimization, they're the ones leading the charge.
Yeah, it's a really powerful combination. I mean, for over 20 years, MECLABS has been really focused on this core idea that getting to that final, yes, that big conversion you're after, it's not just one big jump.
Right.
It's actually a bunch of little yeses along the way. You know, these micro decisions that your customer makes.
Okay, so break that down a little bit. So it's not just about did they buy in the end, but every little step they take to get there.
Exactly.
Clicking on an ad, opening that email, browsing through your products, making sure we're getting them to say yes at each of those tiny moments.
Exactly. And to help you kind of navigate all those tiny little yes moments, MECLABS came up with these things called heuristics.
Okay.
Think of them like mental checklists. These really helpful ways to structure your thinking when you're looking at your ads, your emails, your websites. They're not like, you know, complex equations or anything, but more like frameworks to guide your analysis. And get this, they've actually got 10 of these things patented.
10 patented thinking tools. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for you.
Yeah.
We're going to focus on 3 of these heuristics today that are like gold when it comes to boosting your online marketing. We'll be looking at the effective ad heuristic, the email messaging heuristic, and the conversion sequence heuristic.
Right.
And even though they've got a bit of a formula to them, remember, they're really just guides to help you think better and smarter about your marketing.
Exactly. So the effective ad heuristic looks like this. EA equals 2AT plus I plus as.
Okay.
The email messaging heuristic is EE equals RV multiplied by of plus I minus F plus A. And finally, the conversion sequence heuristic is C equals 4MN plus 3V, which also equals 2IF, 2I.
I know it looks a little technical at first glance, but the big idea here is that the better you can make those things on the right side of those little guides, the better your results are going to be. It's all about understanding what you can actually control to get more of those yeses from your customers.
Right, right.
So let's jump into that first one, the effective ad heuristic. It's EA equals 2AT plus I plus as. What does that even mean?
Okay, so EA stands for effective ad, simple enough. And the very first component, that's all about grabbing attention. You'll notice it's got a 2 in front of it, which means it's weighted more heavily than the others.
Ah, okay.
And the logic there is pretty simple, but super important. If your ad doesn't get noticed, if people just scroll right past it, well, then nothing else you do with that ad even matters.
Makes perfect sense. Right, you could have the best offer in the world, the coolest product, but if your ad is invisible, it's all for nothing. So how do we make sure people actually see our ad, that it stands out?
Well, MECLABS identified 5 key things they call relative differentials that you can play around with. They are size, shape, color, motion, and position.
Okay.
You know, a bigger ad naturally grabs the eye more. An unusual shape can really make it stand out. A bold color can make it pop against everything else on the page. Movement, even just a little animation, tends to catch people's attention. And of course, where you put the ad on the page, that makes a huge difference.
Right. But you can't go crazy with all of that at once, can you?
No, that's a really important point. MECLABS research shows that if you try to make everything in your ad scream for attention, well, it just becomes a jumbled mess. Nothing actually stands out then.
Right.
It's about being smart with those differentials. Use them strategically to break through the clutter without overwhelming people or distracting from your core message.
Like a single bold color against a more muted background, is going to be way more effective than a whole rainbow of colors fighting for attention.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so we've got ad for attracting attention. What about the I? That stands for interest, right? So how do we get someone from seeing our ad to actually wanting to know more?
Well, MECLABS says interest comes down to value. Once you've got someone's attention, you got to immediately show them what's in it for them. What benefit are they going to get by clicking on your ad? This is where your value proposition starts to come into play, even at this early stage.
Okay.
And then we have ask, which is the ask. This might seem obvious, but it's amazing how many marketers trip up on this one. Yeah, they spend so much time on the looks and the initial message that they forget to include a clear ask or a strong call to action. You got to tell people exactly what you want them to do.
Click here, visit our website, get a free quote, buy now.
Exactly, exactly. Don't leave them guessing. And this is super important. Every time you ask someone to do something, even something as small as clicking on an ad, there needs to be a value proposition attached to that specific action. MECLABS calls it a process-level value proposition.
So what am I going to get by clicking on this button right now?
Right. And to really figure out if that process-level value proposition is strong and your overall ad value proposition, MECLABS says look at 4 key things. First, appeal. How badly does your ideal customer want what you're offering?
Okay.
Second, exclusivity. Can they get this somewhere else?
Right.
Third, credibility. Do they trust you? Do they trust your brand? And fourth, clarity. Is it crystal clear what you're offering and what happens if they click?
You know, those 4 elements, appeal, exclusivity, credibility, clarity. This feels like a great checklist. Not just for ads, but for any kind of marketing message, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also got to make sure that the ask in your ad matches where your ideal customer is in their buying journey. You know, someone who's never heard of you before probably isn't going to be ready to buy right away.
Right.
So an ad that says, learn more or download our free guide is much more likely to resonate with them and get that initial click.
So the big question you got to ask yourself when you're making an ad is, why should my ideal customer click on this ad right here, right now, instead of anything else on this page? If you can't answer that clearly and convincingly, your value proposition probably needs some work.
Exactly. If you don't give them a good reason, they're not going to click. All that work you put into attracting attention, it all goes to waste.
Right. All right, let's move on to the second heuristic, the one that's super important for your online marketing. It's the email messaging heuristic. And the formula, it looks a little more complex, right? It's EME equals RV multiplied by of plus I minus S plus A. So what does all that mean?
All right, so this one has both positive forces, things that encourage people to take action, and negative forces, things that hold them back. Let's start with the positive stuff.
Okay.
First up, RV. That stands for relevance. How relevant is this email to the person who's getting it? This is where understanding your audience segments and tailoring your message is really key.
Right, because what one group of your subscribers loves, another group might find totally irrelevant.
Exactly. Then you got offer value. This ties back to that whole value proposition idea we talk about with ads, but now we're talking about email specifically. What are you offering in this email that makes it worth their time?
Gotcha. And the third positive force is I for incentive. What extra little push are you giving them to do what you want them to do, whether that's clicking a link, buying something, or registering for an event?
Exactly. This could be a discount, early access to something new, a valuable freebie, anything that sweetens the deal.
Okay, so those are the things that get people excited about your email. Now, what about the stuff that creates resistance, the negative forces?
Right. First up, you've got F for friction. Friction is anything in the email or the process afterwards that makes it harder for the person to do what you want them to do.
Okay.
It could be the length of the email, a complicated form they have to fill out, a confusing website they land on, anything that feels like a hassle.
And speaking of friction, we've got this great example from the research about an airline email, right? This is a perfect case of friction in action. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So the subject line of this email was amazing. It said, fares from $39, something that's going to grab your attention and get you excited.
Totally.
But then you open the email, and it's this super long list of destinations and offers. And get this, the actual $39 fare, it's buried way down there, like the 40th call to action in the email.
40. Are you serious? They made people scroll through all that just to find the deal they promised in the subject line?
Yeah, it's crazy. All those options, it creates so much friction, it probably just overwhelmed people. Totally defeated the purpose of that awesome subject line.
Wow. Okay, and the other negative force we got to watch out for with email is A's for anxiety.
Right. Anxiety in this context is any worry or concern that might stop someone from doing what you want them to do. It could be worries about privacy, security, being bombarded with more emails, all sorts of things.
And there's this interesting example from Active Network, right, where they had a hypothesis about anxiety, preventing people from signing up for free trials.
Yeah, they figured people were hesitant to sign up because they were worried about getting spammed with calls or pressured by pushy salespeople.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So they tested an abandonment email that specifically addressed those concerns. The takeaway here is you got to try to understand those underlying fears your audience might have and address them head on in your emails.
Just acknowledging the concern can make people feel a lot more comfortable. It builds trust. Now, there were also those 5 really practical tips in the research for increasing an email's perceived value. Those seemed super actionable, things people can use right away.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like making your email feel more like a personal note from a real person instead of a generic marketing blast, that can go a long way. Personalizing the subject line with their name or something relevant to them can really boost open rates. It makes it feel more personal.
Right.
You can also experiment with sending emails at the best time for each person based on when they usually check their inbox. You can personalize the content in purchase confirmation emails, like suggesting related products.
Oh, yeah.
And you can write your email copy in a way that subtly connects with a problem they might have and creates a bit of suspense. So the solution is waiting for them on the landing page. It's a really effective way to drive clicks.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to the third and final heuristic we're diving into today. It's the conversion sequence heuristic. The formula is C equals 4MMs plus 3V, which also equals 2IF, 2A. This one's all about optimizing your web pages and your whole purchase process. And it's even patented, so you know it's got to be important.
Yeah, it's U.S. patent number 8,155,995. And MECLABS is very clear that you shouldn't just jump straight into using this heuristic.
Okay.
You got to start with a strategic question. What's your main objective? They call this Q1.
Okay.
Once you've figured out that ultimate goal, that big macro yes you're aiming for, then you can use the conversion sequence heuristic to help you answer Q2. What's the best way to get there?
So know where you're going before you figure out how to get there. Makes sense. So looking at the heuristic itself, the very first thing is M's for motivation. And it's got a 4 in front of it, the highest weight of any factor. That's got to be significant.
It's huge. Motivation is the most powerful thing driving those conversions. But here's the thing. It's the one thing in this whole heuristic that you as a marketer can't directly change.
Oh, interesting.
It's something that ought to exist within your potential customers. Your job is to understand those motivations, their needs, their desires, their pain points, and then tailor your website and your whole process to align with those things.
Okay, so how do we even start to figure out what our customers are motivated by? The research mentioned looking at both the amount of motivation and the nature of it.
Right. Things like your conversion rates, how often people click on your calls to action, your average order value, how much people care about price changes, price elasticity, and even which marketing channels are bringing in the most valuable customers.
Okay.
All of that can give you clues about how motivated your audience is. But like we talked about before, you got to be careful about how you interpret the data.
Right.
For example, lots of clicks on a particular button could mean people are super motivated, but it could also just mean they're confused about what the button does.
Context is key.
Exactly.
And what about the nature of their motivation? Like, what are the specific things that are driving them?
Yeah, so for that, you want to look at things like click-through tracking, seeing what specific content or offers they're engaging with, the source of their traffic. Are they coming from a Google search for a specific problem or from a social media ad highlighting a particular benefit?
Okay.
That can tell you a lot about their initial intent. Time spent on certain pages can also be helpful.
Right.
Although, again, is a long time good because they're really engaged or they just confused and can't find what they're looking for.
Right, right.
Event reports, which track specific actions people take on your site and the percentage of customers who come back for more, those are also great indicators of what's resonating with them.
Gotcha. Okay, so motivation is the foundation. Then we have V for value proposition. It's got a 3 in front of it, so it's clearly important.
Super important. Your value proposition, as we talked about with ads and emails, is the answer to that question your ideal customer is asking, why should I buy from you instead of anyone else? It's all about explaining what makes you different and better in a way that really speaks to their motivations.
Okay.
And those 4 key things we talked about before, appeal, exclusivity, credibility, clarity, those are just as crucial here for crafting a strong value proposition for your website.
And the only factor, that's where appeal and exclusivity really come together. Right?
Exactly. You got to make sure that's clear on your key web pages. That's what makes you stand out. And remember, your value proposition isn't just one static thing. It needs to be there, strong and clear at every stage of the customer journey.
Right. And you mentioned this value proposition spectrum with primary, prospect level, and product level value propositions. What does that look like on a website?
Okay, so your primary value proposition is that overarching statement that explains why someone should choose your company in general. Prospect-level value propositions are more targeted. They speak to the specific needs and pain points of different groups of your ideal customers and explain why you're the best solution for them.
Gotcha.
And then you've got product-level value propositions, which focus on the individual products or services you offer. They explain why someone should choose this specific item over any other option out there.
So you need to make sure you have strong value propositions at every level, guiding visitors through those micro-yes moments.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have a general idea of your company's value. You got to articulate it clearly and relevantly at each step of the way.
All right, so the next part of the conversion secrets heuristic brings in I for incentive and F for friction. They both have a 2 in front of them.
Right. We've already talked about incentives, those extra bonuses that encourage conversion. But let's dig a little deeper into friction on your website.
Okay.
MECLABS calls up the aggravation factor. It's all of the obstacles and difficulties people run into while trying to do what you want them to do on your site. And it usually falls into 2 categories, length and difficulty.
Okay.
Length-related friction is things like super long forms, checkouts with too many pages, tons of text that people have to read through.
Right.
Difficulty-related friction is anything that causes confusion or requires too much effort, like a confusing menu, unclear calls to action, broken links, or a bad mobile experience.
So we obviously want to minimize friction as much as possible. But the research did mention that sometimes you can use length-oriented friction strategically. How would that work?
Well, you could make a process a little longer on purpose, like maybe having a multi-step application form. This could help you qualify leads better or get more detailed information from serious prospects.
Okay.
But it's a delicate balance. Too much friction, even if it's intentional, can scare people away. You got to weigh the benefits of the extra information against the risk of losing conversions.
Right. And then there's incentive. The trick here, like with email, is to offer something that has a high perceived value differential.
Right. So the customer sees the value of the incentive as much bigger than the actual cost to you.
Gotcha.
A small, well-targeted bonus or a limited time offer can really boost conversion without hurting your bottom line too much.
Right. And last but not least, we have A for anxiety with a -2 in front of it.
Yeah. Anxiety on a website is that uneasy feeling that can stop people from taking action.
We talked about it with email, but it feels even more important on a website where people are constantly judging your trustworthiness.
Oh, absolutely. Concerns about security, doubts about the quality of your products, even just the fear of making a bad decision can trigger anxiety and lead to abandoned carts or people leaving your site.
Right.
And MECLABS says there are 3 key levels for dealing with website anxiety: specificity, proximity, and intensity.
Okay.
Specificity means figuring out exactly what's making people anxious and addressing those specific concerns with clear and reassuring information.
Gotcha.
Proximity is about putting those anxiety-reducing elements right next to the things that might trigger anxiety.
Like putting security badges, testimonials, or guarantees near your checkout button, or a form asking for sensitive information.
Exactly. And then intensity means addressing both of the logical part of the concern and the emotional part.
So it's not enough to just say we're trustworthy. You got to prove it with tangible stuff and put those reassurances where people need them most.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a little bit, the research also talked about MECLABS' research partnership model. This seems like a really cool way they fund in their research.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They team up with companies and create a dedicated research environment focused on that company's specific marketing challenges. The ROI from the optimization work they do together then helps fund more research and development at MECLABS.
Yeah.
And they highlighted their partnership with the New York Times, which has been going on for years and has been super successful. They've seen huge growth in their digital revenue thanks to this partnership.
That's amazing. And they're always looking for new research partners, companies that are serious about understanding why their customers do what they do and are ready to use data to get better results.
And the results they shared were pretty impressive. Some partners saw their revenue triple, their lead generation skyrocket, and their conversion rates go way up.
Yeah, it really shows the power of this data-driven, customer-centric approach. And the MECLABS optimization process itself is very structured. They have a 5-step cycle: discover, plan, prepare, conduct, and analyze.
So it's a very systematic, data-informed process.
Absolutely. They start by really getting to know the partner's business goals, target audience, and competitors. Then they create a detailed test plan with scientifically sound experiments, often using those patented heuristics we talked about.
Okay.
Then they carefully prepare and run those tests, making sure everything is valid and accurate. And finally, they analyze the data to see not just the financial impact, but also to get deeper insights into customer behavior.
And they have that MECLABS seal, right? That's for experiments that are past their rigorous checks.
Exactly. It's a stamp of approval showing that the results are reliable.
So they basically act as a custom research lab for their partners, providing expertise in everything from marketing strategy and customer research to creative design and the technology needed for testing. And they really focus on knowledge transfer so the partners' teams learn and grow throughout the process.
Exactly. It's not just about getting quick wins. It's about building a culture of optimization and continuous improvement.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that MECLABS Institute's research is a gold mine of information for anyone looking to understand and improve their online marketing. Whether it's ads, emails, or websites, they've got you covered.
Absolutely.
And the key takeaway for you, our listeners, is to start thinking about your own marketing through the lens of these heuristics.
Yeah.
Take some time to think about those micro yes moments in your customer journey and figure out what you can do to make sure your audience keeps saying yes at every step. Really dig into those motivations, make sure your value proposition is crystal clear at every touch point, and identify anything that might be causing friction or anxiety. Understanding these things is the key to getting better and better results.
Absolutely. And here's a final thought for you to chew on. Considering everything we've discussed today, what's one small change you can make in your marketing right now to better understand why your customers do what they do?
Yeah, give that some thought, see where it takes you.
It's worth exploring.
All right, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you with it.
Ready to take your online business to the next level? Subscribe to our digital marketing podcast and then join our Accountability for Success Mastermind. With expert advice from industry leaders, you'll gain knowledge and insights that will help you succeed in today's digital marketing world. From social media strategies to search engine optimization, we have all the tools you need. Learn from successful entrepreneurs and take control of your online success. Join the Accountability for Success Mastermind now at bit.ly/AFSM podcast.